Canada's premier late model short track stock car series, still aches with growing pains. In July, the expansion out of Ontario started east to Quebec and the Autodrome at St. Eustache. The CASCARs were back after a 3-year absence, and Steve Robblee staged a sterling performance. Super Series win of 1993. It's now August, and the call is to go west, young men and women. The Budweiser CASCAR Super Series Roadshow is booked onto the prairies in Saskatoon and Regina. But we kick off the long-awaited Western Swing in Calgary, Alberta. Finally, the link-up with the CASCAR West contingent to establish face-to-face the classic East versus West confrontation we've been building towards. From Race City Speedway, Calgary, Alberta, it's the Budweiser CASCAR Super Series. Hi again, everybody. I'm Eric Thomas, along with Ron St. Clair and Mike Goodwin, and welcome to Race City Speedway, Calgary, Alberta, in the foothills of the Canadian Rockies. Ron, we've waited a long time to get this Western Series underway. Now I can understand why. This is a marvelous facility and some of that patented Western hospitality. It's been great.
Well, it's a homecoming for me personally. I'm really looking forward to the rest of this series, too, Saskatoon and Regina. But this is the only race we'll see on TSN out west here at Calgary, and a beautiful facility, as you mentioned. The track conditions here are ideal. It's fast, and we have all the regulars here, plus 10 very quick CASCAR West competitors in the field, too.
Steve Robblee, Kerry Micks, Brad Jacques. We know about these guys, the strong runners from the Eastern contingent, but there are some Western guys we got to keep our eyes on, too.
Harold Brown, driving the Pontiac number 31, qualified third fastest, knows his way around this track, helped build the track, in fact. Look for him to be a favorite. And coincidentally, the top 12 have been inverted, so the Castrol Chrysler comes off the front row for the Castrol 200.
For news on today's starting grid, here's Mike Goodwin.
The story down here on the grid today is one of experience. Not driver experience in a race car, but driver experience at this specific track. A large number of these drivers have never made any competitive laps here. They've got practice in qualifying, but that's it. Compounding that is the driver of the #1 car, Sean McGlynn. He's driving the backup car for Paul Mathers. He's only put about 9 laps on the car. Sean, how'd you work your way into this ride?
I talked to Dave Mathers about getting a ride out to watch the races, and he asked me if I'd be interested in driving the car, their spare car, if they didn't need it, and it turns out they don't need it yet. So
how's the car feel? Is it handling the same as your other one? How you do in the corners and stuff?
Well, with little experience on this track, it's sort of hard to compare, but the car feels like it's hooking up really well.
We'll be back to go green with the Castrol 200 from Race City Speedway in Calgary, Alberta.
This program is brought to you in part by Budweiser Racing. Eats up Bud race. Port of Canada, where quality is job one. It's working. STP and Presto. Midas. Trust your car to Midas. And Snap-on Tools, the official tool of CASCAR.
Sir Duke Sawchuck out of Windsor, Ontario. Ron St. Clair has been quick out of the box all year. He's our fastest qualifier here at Race City.
Eclipsing the previous record of 18.56 set by Paul Gilgan of CASCAR West. We'll see him a little bit later on. Here are the balance of the top qualifiers. Dan Shirtliff, Harold Brown, the top CASCAR West competitor. Steve Robblee, 4th fastest in the field here today. Brad Jacques up there in the points hunt as well, 5th fastest.
It has been a renewed effort this year for Bob Hulme out of Dorchester, Ontario. He'll start inside of row 1, or will he? A tire problem puts him tail, but at least on statistics he starts up front.
Tough break for Bobby Hulme. Rob Neely will start on the front row. Sean McGlynn borrows a motion car and gets a top 12 time. The other car did not.
James Maurice promises the rest of the season will be supported by Molly Black Gold, and a big package for him next year, and he's going to be faster today.
Jim Lapsevich made the haul from Hamilton, Ontario to Calgary for inside of row number 3, and flanking him will be John Gott, top Chrysler, now in the field.
Capable of a top 3 finish, did one with us on TV last year. He could do it here. This is a nice big track. Tall banks at either end. Let's have a look at the rest of the field here. Rows 4, 5, and 6.
Well, Dan Shirtliff is due, no doubt about it. Duke Sawchuck comes off the outside of row number 6 because of that 12-car inversion. Sean Duffy could be tough. Kerry Micks, the points leader going into this one.
Yep.
By 23 over Steve Robblee.
Wade Lee out of Calgary. He's the hometown favorite in row number 9. He knows how to run this place. Watch for him to move up in a hurry.
A couple of STP Pontiacs. You mentioned Wade Lee. Mike Herniak is the other car. Gary Grody from Red Deer. Mark Patrick from Delaware, Ontario. Sean Mangin. Paul Gilgan and that CASCAR West Walker Dynamax Chev.
Kevin Dowler from Edmonton, row 15. There he is, car 81. He's a very strong runner this place, Ron.
We saw the V6 there, number 46 of Dan Shirley, the NTN Bearing-sponsored car, so he could be tough as well. This is one of the tracks he competes at in the CASCAR West Series.
Now here's the visual evidence of that problem Bob Hulme had with the tire, Ron. It will be Sean McGlynn on the pole in car number 1 of the Mathers backup car, and Rob Neely out of Mississauga coming out of turn number 4, and the green flag is out, and we're running with a Castrol 200 on a gorgeous sunny afternoon here at Race City Speedway in Calgary.
Ford and Chevrolet battling for the early lead off the front row. The number 1 car of Sean McGlynn gets a little tap from the 25 of Jim Lapcevich. Another Ford up front here running strong early.
Look at Mark Dilley out of Markham, Ontario, car number 64, making his move on the inside of the Lapcevich number 25. Now, we talked to Rob Neely and his dad, Bud, in the pits. They said they've changed the plugs in the motor. There was a skip or a miss in it, and it looks like they've got the problem solved up front here and running strong.
Well, you can see how fast these cars carry through the corners here. It is a half-mile oval at Calgary, but very, very wide corners. Not a whole lot of fear really hitting the wall up there. There's a lot of room should they get in trouble. Short straightaways, big, wide, sweeping corners, and they're pulling about 115 miles an hour down the straightaways.
The highest bank turns that these cars will run on this year here at Race City. Right up to the other side of the straightaways. They come down here to the stripe to click off another with Rob Neely leading. Other side of this grandstand is a drag strip, a full quarter-mile drag strip where they host some NHRA events. It's a terrific facility out here in Calgary. It's all in one location.
And a road course there as well.
That's right.
Mandatory pit stops, by the way, in the Castro 200 this afternoon. So Rob Neely, the early race leader, and out front with a time of 18.81 as we get a good look at them powering by.
Get an idea of those big, tall, bank sweeping turns. Back to this battle here, and a good one it is. Lapcevich, let's talk about his power. They cooked the motor in the number 25 Tim Hortons Ford here yesterday, so they lowered in the bullet that they used at Cayuga, but right now he doesn't appear to be lacking for any power. The battle is on here with Steve Robblee in car 32.
Well, Jim Lapcevich, driver of that number 25 Tim Horton Ford Thunderbird, is definitely in line, Eric, as Walker Dynamax Rookie of the Year this year. He's leading in that category right now. Alex Nagy was, but unfortunately couldn't make the haul to CASCAR West.
It's that old story, isn't it? I mean, you want to gain some points in the Super Series overall and in the rookie standings too. Man, you miss one event, it really does hurt your chances.
Steve Robblee looking to win the Canadian Ford Motorsport Championship this year, and a good effort here will certainly go a long way in helping that cause.
Here's a look at Mark Dilley, 64, the Sega Genesis Oldsmobile. That crew has been pretty busy. He ripped up this car pretty severely when that wheel hub broke at Cayuga, you remember? And he brushed the wall hard. Most of that front end has been replaced, and the rest of the frame was bent up pretty bad, too. So it's been a busy time for the Dilley crew in the 64, but it's running nice and square here, it looks like.
Well, for the most part, we've only seen the top 6-7 cars right now, and again, the top 12 qualified within 0.381 seconds of each other. And that's traditional in CASCAR. We usually see the top 12 within 0.3 of a second. Brad Jacques in the Walker Dynamax Chevrolet was among them. He was one of the top qualifiers, 5th overall, in fact. And Dan Shirtliff in the 39 car was 2nd fastest qualifier. He's now starting to move up through the field.
Dan Shirtliff out of Huntsville, Ontario, and that brand new sponsorship package from GM Goodwrench. He says, no book on this place, Eric, but the bank turns kind of remind me of New Smyrna. The series used to run down in Florida, as you remember. He says, we're going to try that setup, and so far it's looking all right. Look at Duke Sawchuck, our fast qualifier, in car 74, trying to get his nose down on the 39 of Shirtliff. Now they're in traffic.
Well, imagine if Dale Earnhardt were to put a 9 on the back of his car. It would look identical to Dan Shirtliff's GM Goodwrench Chevrolet.
Just about. Brad Jacques in the 35. What a season renaissance for this man out of Mount Bridges. 3 Super Series wins coming into Calgary. Would he love a victory out here in the Western Swing?
Running 3rd in the points right now, and just 37 points off the lead, so that could change here this afternoon. But again, the top 3 cars are running within 37 points. Kerry Micks in the 02, the points leader coming into this one. Brad Jacques running 3rd, and Steve Robblee right in the middle, and it could all change here today.
Budweiser hot air balloon looking over the entire situation down here. A little moisture in the lens of our wall camera from some of these cars, but no threat of rain.
We don't have a camera up on that balloon, do we?
No, I don't think on the balloon. On the wall we do. Look at Rob Neely running up front here. He's got a Super Series win for himself at Ottawa Valley and running much better this year than he did last.
Rob Neely in the Mac Tool Chevrolet, definitely overdue as we get a good look at him. And these cars are very fast on this track. 30 cars taking the green flag here this afternoon.
Steve Robblee, car number 32. Can he pull off a second consecutive points championship this year? The year started off slow for the London, Ontario Male Athlete of the Year, but he is catching on. He says, Eric, this is a pretty bumpy track. It doesn't look like it. He says, but I'm getting about 2 to 3 inches of shock travel in the front end, especially going into turn number 1. And that's unusual for Robblee. As you know, he likes a pretty stiff automobile. So they're trying to get that front end of that car to stick down a bit better. And so far, it looks all right.
Well, we saw the 47 car there just very briefly down on the apron of the speedway. Sean Mangium looks to be in trouble early here as he gets lapped by some of the contenders in the Castrol 200. Now, there are a couple of very quick cars, first and second in qualifying in the Castrol qualifying procedures. Duke Sawchuk in the 74 looks to the inside of Dan Shirtliff for some passing room. Looks like he might have the nose of the Pontiac in there for the spot.
Duke was fiddling with the gear in this car, as most of these guys have done. A 6800 gear appears to be the one of choice, but he says, I need another 100 RPM because the engine is starting to lug coming off these high banks. But the Sawchuk crew has been messing around with the RPM and the gearing, and the battle is on here with Dan Shirtliff. And there's another team that's been struggling with the handling here, but it's not easy because, after all, they don't have a book on this place.
It's hard to believe that some of these drivers, particularly the GM drivers, are trying to pull in the vicinity of 7,200 RPM.
On today's Midas Tech Ball, we're going to take a look at the suspension systems used in CASCAR. As with any other form of motorsport, the suspension setup is critical depending on which racetrack you're at. Here at Calgary with the high banked ovals, the teams have to use a very high strength spring, a very high valve shock. When they go into these corners at over 100 miles an hour, these little bumps seem like potholes. So the valving in these Monroe Racing shocks is very tight. They also use a very tight spring. They don't want to be bottoming the car out, going through these bumps and divots all through the corners. When the drivers exit the corners, the spring load and the shock will help keep the car up off the ground. You'll find these cars get a little squirrely in the rear end. That's because of the way they have their springs set up. All in all, the suspension setup in these cars is critical to get these drivers around the track.
Well, Monroe is very active in the CASCAR Budweiser Super Series. In fact, they sponsor all of the heat races. Sean Dupe in the 07, Rob Neely right there in the 97, and also Kerry Micks in the 02 were all heat race winners earlier in this program.
Didn't take this guy long to get up and challenge for the lead. A lead change here. Steve Robblee in the 32 will take it away from Rob Neely in the 97, and Mark Dilley is sticking with these guys in the 64.
Well, we just saw the 05 of Bill Clark Jr. from Calgary coming off of pit road. A rather unusual kind of a pitting situation here. They pit right in the infield area there, as you can see briefly. But not only did Robblee come through, he brought the Saga Oldsmobile of Mark Dilley through, and it looks like the Ford of Jim Lapsevich in this Canadian Ford Motorsport Series points race might try to take a spot here as well.
There's no power lacking on the Lapsevich number 25. You see him there with Duke Sawchuk in the 74 and the 49 of James Maurice. We mentioned that he blew that engine and put in one that he thought was a little tired after Calgary, or a few guys should say, but I mean, he's keeping up here with the leaders.
Well, I don't know if it's possible to win the Rookie of the Year and Most Improved Driver in the same year. Do you think that's
worth
possible?
A try. It's worth a try.
Well, he's certainly in line for both of them, I'll tell you.
Duke Sawchuk really putting the hammer on the backside of Rob Neely, trying to find some room. He's going to try it high side here. The middle groove is where you want to be. Wade Lee, the Calgary native who runs very strong out here, tells us that if you can run around the middle groove and pass people there, you're going to be in pretty good shape. And that's what Sawchuk is trying to find his own line somewhere around the middle.
Wade Lee driving the STP Pontiac in CASCAR West, one of only 3 CASCAR West drivers to qualify in the top 20, and he qualified 13th fastest overall. Still working his way through the field, though, as the leaders begin to move up on some lap traffic.
And car number 79, you see him at the corner of your eyes there every once in a while. In the middle of the pack. Let's get on board now with Duke Sawchuk. Car number 74, the Labatt Genuine Draft Key Tours Pontiac.
He's on the way to the front. The Molly Black Gold Buick Regal right in front of him, however, and Rob Neely from 1st to 4th with only 1 lead change in the race so far.
Let's elaborate on the story we touched on earlier, Ron. Talking to Debbie Maurice in the pits, she's very excited. She says the folks at Molly Black Gold are going to give us the budget to finish this year and a major package for next year, and that's what you really like to hear.
Well, here's that car right now.
Yep.
He appears to be on the throttle, maybe just a hair late off the apex.
I get a little more aggressive on the fuel if I were you, Jim. You're going to get off these bankings a little bit late. You're going to go backwards in a hurry. Here's a real nice fight. 13 of Cat Teasdale, the 75 of Mike Herniak out of Windsor. And there's that 75 car that looks an awful lot like Wade Lee's number 79.
Well, Mike Herniak powers by Cat Teasdale on the outside. Cat's going to give up the outside groove here. You can see the bumpiness that you referred to. Watch, particularly on the Midas Sellers car coming into turn number 1 if we get a good look at it. Watch the bumpiness here. You can see it right there.
Exactly. The cars do jump around a little bit there. That's a little bit too much bump steer. There you see the 05 of Bill Clark Jr. out of Calgary, Alberta. He's one of the guys that sort of got messed up coming out of the pits there and just trying to pedal his way around and stay out of the way of the front runners.
Also had a very brief look at the 85 of Gary Grody from Red Deer, Alberta, driving the International Rock Bit Chevrolet.
Wade Lee is in trouble. Wade Lee in car 79 brings out the first yellow of the afternoon. He just overdrove it.
And a very close call there, too. Kevin Dowler from Edmonton and the Mohawk Oil Thunderbird just about plowed into him there. Very close call.
Yeah, the 81 didn't miss him by much. We're going to slow things down for the first time this afternoon. It's a gorgeous day here in Calgary. What sunshine.
Yeah, and I love that view of the mountains, particularly from our broadcast location here, high above the Budweiser start-finish line.
Yep.
On a clear day, you can see all of the mountain range and, of course, downtown Calgary.
I worked out here for 3 years doing a little radio and some television, too, and you never, ever get tired of it.
Mandatory pit stops.
Steve Robblee on pit row here with mandatory pit stops. Here is your top 5 as of the moment. Mark Dilley, Lapsevich, Neely, Sawchuk, and Kerry Micks.
All right, contenders coming in. Steve Robblee, James Maurice. We see the Kerry Micks car coming in off screen. Also Cat Teasdale, Sean Dupe coming in. The 39, Dan Shirtliff making his mandatory stop. Also Gary Reynolds.
0-2 of Kerry Micks is in, and so is James Maurice in the pits with some problems. Here's Mike.
Well, Jimmy Maurice's crew got to get themselves under the hood here. He's having an overheating problem. They're trying to dump as much cool water on the car as possible before the lead cars come around. He doesn't want to lose any time. He's got to stay out on the lead lap.
Well, we didn't see the 64 of Mark Dilley come in as they continue to work away on the 49 car of James Maurice. So it looks like Mark Dilley in the Sega Oldsmobile will inherit the lead as Robblee gives up track position. And we do have an onboard radio with the early race leader, Rob Neely.
Rob Neely, Eric Thomas, TV control. Do you read?
Yeah, Eric.
Robbie, you had some ignition problems in the pits before this race started, but the way that car's running now, I don't think you've got any problems with the ignition.
No, my dad, the crew chief, did a great job tuning the motor up right before, just after time trials, and the car's just running great. The chassis man, Steve, he just set the car up great, and I just got to drive it now.
Robbie, this is probably the highest bank speedway you'll run on in this series. How are you handling the high banks at either end?
Quite well, actually. I can go into the corner real great and come off real clean. The motor feels real strong, and these high banks are great. I wish there was more in around Ontario and stuff. This Budweiser Super Series event here at Calgary is just beautiful racetrack. Thank you very much for letting me race here.
Like to keep him happy. Do we can, Rob?
Yep. Happy camper. Mike Goodwin standing by in the pits.
Dan, you're out quite early. What's the problem here?
The NTN bearings Oldsmobile seems to have a heating problem. It goes good for about 15 laps, and the engine gets way too hot, like 250 degrees. We've got 2 more national events to run against these eastern fellas, and we want to be in Saskatoon and Regina to race against them. So for now, the NTN bearing Oldsmobile is cooling off. We'll be back at them hard on Wednesday.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, thank you.
Saskatoon is the next stop on the series. His home track. He is the only V6 in the field.
Hot stuff at Race City. We've got more for you in just a moment. Eric Thomas, Ron Sinclair, Mike Goodwin, the Budweiser CASCAR Super Series, stop number 1 on the long-anticipated western swing. We're coming back under green, and there it is, and we're back underway with the Castrol 200. It is a fabulous afternoon here at Race City Speedway in Calgary. Mark Dilley in the 64, Jim Lapsevich in the 25 Oldsmobile, and the Ford battling up front run.
Running third, Rob Neely. And, of course, he was one of the early race leaders in this one. Looks like John Gott in the 06 now running fourth. Looks to the outside of Neely for some passing room, but that short wheelbase Chrysler not able to catch him this time around.
Oh, there we see just about going out of your picture on the right-hand side. Angus Ontario's Junior Regan moving up very well. That car's got gobs of horsepower. I have a funny feeling he's just a few events away from his first Super Series win.
360 cubic inches under the hood. There's another Chrysler, the 36 of Bobby Hulme, originally scheduled to be the pole sitter, had to go to the back, and he's working his way back to the front again. He's looking very impressive. Could be one of the fastest cars on the speedway right now.
Just got a little peek there at the 85 of Gary Grody out of Red Deer, Alberta, pardon me, in the 92 Lumina. Down on the bottom, letting these guys wing their way around the top. It's great to see this Western Series growing the way it has, but at the moment, they're sort of taking a back seat to the guys from the east.
Get our first look at that Pennzoil Pontiac of Harold Brown. He was third fastest qualifier, and he's won all of the CASCAR West regional events out here. Number 31 car.
This is where it all gets bunched up. The 07 is Sean Duffy out of Windsor. There's Mike Herniak in the 75. Kerry Micks. We've watched him claw his way up, staying in the top 5 in points all year, still without the benefit of a Super Series win. He's charging hard here. You can be aggressive in the corners, and man, that plays right into Kerry's hands.
Kerry Micks to the outside, Sean Duffy to the low side of the speedway, and it looks like both grooves are working well. Kerry Micks makes it stick big time on the top side, and he'll take one spot. Now come up to challenge Sean McGlynn in that borrowed Motion 4 Thunderbird.
There is only a middle groove, but you're right, Ron. Some of these guys from the east have opened up one down around the bottom. Let's ride on board now with Harold Brown, car number 31 out of Calgary, Alberta.
He reminds me so much of Jack Monahan, just a wily veteran behind the wheel.
Exactly. Jack Monahan out of Harrow not with us on this Western swing. Kind of a shame. I think he'd run like a bear at this place.
Go 5 or 6 who aren't here that would run like bears.
Absolutely.
Sean Duffy forced off the throttle just a little bit there, and Harold Brown had to follow suit.
Duke Sawchuk ducks it down low there. Just got a little puff of smoke as he dropped off the pavement just for a second there. Lapsevich doing a great job to hang up there in the Ford and the 25 to Tim Horton's entry.
Well, that's Sawchuk up to second place right now in the 74 car. He's yet to make his mandatory pit stop, however, and the same with the 25 car. In fact, the 64 car has yet to make a pit stop as well, so they have to come in sometime during the Castrol 200. It's not likely, Eric, they'll take on tires.
Uh-oh. 05 Bill Clark Jr. out of Calgary, Alberta, in trouble again, and that's going to bring out the yellow one more time.
The all-weather windows, Motire Chevrolet down on the grassy portion of the infield, and now we might see some of those contenders come in and make their mandatory stops.
Don Damaris with the yellow flag. Ooh, the black one there. I'd like to see that one.
All righty. Well, let's go on board, talk with the race leader, Mark Dilley.
Mark Dilley, Eric Thomas TV Control. Do you read?
Go ahead, Eric.
Mark, you've had some terrible luck the last little while. It must feel pretty good to run up front where there's no one in front of you but the pace car at this point.
Yeah, we're real happy. The Sega Oldsmobile's really running here. Seems good. The car seems good. Now we just hopefully we got good enough strategies in the pits there.
Mark, this is a track that's totally green to most of these guys, including yourself. How do you read this place? You told me that it reminds you of a track down that you ran in the States.
Yeah, this track's a lot like Toledo, Ohio. It's fast coming off the corner. I think the key here is to be as smooth as possible and keep as much momentum as you can.
Anybody ever tell you, Eric, that you and Mark Dilley look the same? I thought that was you there.
Separated at birth, me and the Dill guy.
Well, making their mandatory stop so far.
Well, hang on here, Ron. Let's have a look at Bill Clark Jr. right on board as he just gets out of shape. There's Sean McGlynn. Didn't touch him. Just went around all by himself.
Doesn't appear there was any contact.
Yeah.
Okay, mandatory pit stops in already. The 06 Chrysler of John Gaunt, 49 of James Maurice, the 31 of Harold Brown, the 79 of Wade Lee. And now look at some other contenders. There's Paul Mathers, Mark Patrick. The leader, race leader. Hard to believe he's giving up track position just shy of the STP halfway point. Why would he do that?
I have no idea. It may just be slight confusion. These guys really don't know this place and how long it's going to take them to make up the positions they may lose by doing this. He probably figures he blew it by not coming in on the first yellow, but Mark Dilley's going to try it here, and there's the 27 of Junior Reagan up on the jacks as well.
Looks like they're going to take on one race side tire, and only one per pit stop was legislated by CASCAR, and they're taking on some fuel as well.
Long track for these guys. I want to make sure they've got their cell topped up. Into the pits. Here's Mike Goodwin.
The number 9, Paul Gilguin, is in the pits here with a little bit of a cooling problem too. Looks like they got into a little bit of contact under that caution period. They pushed the cooling system right back, punched some holes in it. They're losing a lot of water, but the crew's trying to see what they can do to cool the car down and get them back out there.
Thought he was washing the car with that handgun thing there.
Well, Mark Patrick coming out. His car obviously running a little hot as they have the Don Martin haulage hood off.
It is not a hot day out here, but the sun is beating down on these guys, and when you're running up high RPM in close quarters at this place, it does tend to block the air a lot, and these guys are watching these temperature needles climb up. Green flag. Let's get them going here. Duke Sarchuk and Jim Lapsevich, row number 1.
I still have a hard time understanding why the Sega Oldsmobile team of Mark Dilley gave up track position so close to the STP halfway point, because there is money there and a bonus should you go on to win the race if you were the STP halfway leader. But it looks like the Duker will be the halfway leader this time.
At this point, and the challenge is on from Hamilton's Jim Lapsevich on his horse again. No lacking in horsepower there. He kind of got jumped a little bit of a hole shot on the stripe by Sarchuk, but he's back up there running that middle group. But that car looks like it's getting a little loose here, and Steve Robblee never too far from the front. There he is in car 32.
And very important to note here that the 74 car Duke Sarchuk and the 25 of Jim Lapsevich have yet to make their mandatory pit stops. That's why they've been running up front all afternoon. Steve Robblee in the 32, Brad Jacques in the 35 have made their stops. They're running in 3rd and 4th place right now.
Yeah, so Robblee knows 200 laps is a long time at this place. Just waiting Kitty by the door to see what happens with these two guys up front. The yellow, they got to come in. That'll give up track position. So maybe Robblee can just park himself where he is and inherit the lead later on when that yellow comes out. But you've got to hope that the yellow comes out.
Again, we saw the 81 car very briefly of Kevin Dowler down on the apron of the Speedway. He's had problems much of the afternoon here. Here's the STP halfway point. Duke Sarchuk is the leader and will pick up the bonus.
Dowler's problems internal in the engine. When they did a refresher deal on the motor, they found a hole in one of the pistons, and that's one of the problems there. Whether they've got that fixed or not, I don't know. I don't think so, because as you said, he's running down around the bottom here.
Wade Lee in the CASCAR West STP car running 13th. Don Mossman running 15th. Kevin Dowler running 17th. What is it? They're all running odd positions here.
Bob Hulme, car number 36, was supposed to be on the pole by the start inversion. That tire problem all fixed up. And Dan Shirtliff, car number 39, those guys sticking together as they make their way around the bottom here. Shirtliff's got the quicker automobile, but Hulme doing a good job to cut off all the holes.
Tough afternoon so far for Kat Teasdale. We just had word from the pit area that she is experiencing problems. She's been in the pits 3 times this afternoon already in the Midas Sellers car. We haven't seen too much of CASCAR West Ron Thiering, the number 18 car at Sherwood Park, Alberta, sponsored by Wetaskiwin Sunset Speedway. That is just outside of Edmonton. Could become the 4th CASCAR West sanctioned track in 1994.
Some talks going with those guys, do you?
I think they just have to pave the track out there, and then talks will resume.
Oh, I would leave it dirt. I'd like to see these guys on the dirt track.
Well, if that's the case, they could run in Edmonton at Capital City Speedway.
That's true, too. Yeah, Jim Lapsevich, car number 25, kind of waiting for this. Appears to be going backwards just a little, but hanging tough here to hold out the 32 is Steve Robblee.
And they just went by that 18 car Ron Thiering, who we mentioned moments ago. And this is a battle for position on the Speedway. 2nd place up for grabs. The Ford of Lapsevich on the outside might be able to box in Robblee behind the Molly Black Gold Buick of James Murray's. And no such chance. Robblee's too experienced for that.
Here we see Kat Teasdale now dropping down to the lower part of the apron. Her problems continue. Yes, and I thought I saw the yellow flag, and it's going to come out again. And we're going to slow it down here at Race City Speedway in Calgary.
The caution flag slowing down the Castrol 200. And there is the reason again. Bill Clark Jr. in the all-weather Windows Motire Chevrolet loops it around.
He has had himself a tough afternoon, looping and spinning and getting in the way. Let's have another look at it. We've got an onboard camera. We're getting some pretty good carnival-like rides here out of the 05.
Looks like there was contact there that time, Eric.
Could have been a little bump.
Alrighty. Well, Kat Teasdale's in trouble again.
Kat, early end of the day, what happened out there?
Well, we had some real handling problems with the car. We've been chasing a really, really loose car all today. We finally got it around on that last pit stop. We've also had a problem. We thought it was attributed to something else. The engine felt real tight, and we rejetted it, and it felt pretty good, and it just let go out there. All the gauges were running great, though. It showed that our engine was running strong, so obviously it was something that was just its time, to climb up. But the Midas Sellers car was running great, so hopefully we'll be back in Saskatoon doing well.
Tough break. Thanks,
Thanks a lot.
And up and down kind of season for that team, but they did make another Club's Ed millionaire here in Calgary, as they have done at all of the series events. Let's talk with defending champion Steve Robblee.
Steve Robblee, Eric Thomas, TV Control. You read?
Yeah, I read Garrett.
Steve, compare your car now to the car you were running at the beginning of the race when you were running up close to the front.
Well, I'm not getting off the corner quite as well as I was, I don't think. The car's still real good. Duke's strong, though. Real strong.
You've obviously got time.
Oh, yeah, there's lots of time.
Steve Robblee trying to catch Kerry Micks in the points race.
Just past the halfway point of the Castrol 200. There's more to come from Calgary in a moment.
Well, here's something you don't see too often in a CASCAR event. Jacques crew isn't using this foil wrap to do any sun tanning or anything. Underneath it is his fuel can. They're using it as a reflective element to keep the heat off of the gas. A cooler gas can, cooler fuel, denser charge, the car can make more power.
The Personality Profile, brought to you by STP. Engine treatment with XEP2.
You hear about it all the time through sports and through politics. The emotional rivalry between Ontario and Quebec.
But I want to tell you something. The rivalry between Calgary and Edmonton is one of the hottest city versus city rivalries in the entire nation. It prevails in NHL hockey, CFL football, and yes, right here in the CASCAR Super Series.
There is a footnote to the stock car fight between 27-year-old Kevin Dowler of Edmonton, driver of the number 81 Mohawk Oil Lumina, and Calgary's Wade Lee, also 27, driver of the number 79 STP Keith GM Pontiac. Both drivers are longtime friends who started racing against each other in go-karts barely into their teens.
Yeah, I was lucky. My parents allowed us to play, football, and I played lots of professional or junior hockey, and wrestling was a big thing in high school for me, and now this is my wrestling.
Go-kart racing gives you a lot of good experience, just the basic driving skills, what you need to move on, I think, in motorsport.
Kevin and Wade both excelled at go-kart racing. They won regional, provincial, and national titles. And they noticed something, too, that 9 times out of 10, they were the ones battling for the win of the checkered flag with the rest of the field playing catch-up.
In '87, it was time to graduate to more power and larger machines. Wade landed a ride in the now-defunct Players GM Showroom Stock Series. He immediately called his good buddy Kevin, who got a ride of his own, and they were trading paint and rubbing fenders once again.
Yeah, Wade and I have been racing together for 15 years now, and it seems like each weekend we get into a different situation. We've rubbed a lot, but we're still talking at the end of every weekend.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's quite physical in the CASCAR Series right now than what I was used to with the GM Motorsport cars, but it's good racing, it's hard racing, and I really enjoy the longer races.
By the start of this season, that old Players GM Series was gone, so those phone lines between Calgary and Edmonton were humming again, with Kevin and Wade deciding that the next logical step in their careers would be to weld together a couple of CASCARs.
Sure, in 1991, we rented a Lumina from Dave Jackson out of Cincinnati and ran the Players Limited 500. It was quite an event for me. It was the first time I ever ran a real stock car, quote unquote. I was used to the showroom stock cars. 500 laps is a long time around Race City.
Yeah, after a good week of racing with Kevin, we always phone each other either Monday, Tuesday, and we compare notes a little bit and talk about who scraped whose door and who changed whose paint and who's going to fix whose bumper and pay the bill. But all in all, we have a lot of good fun and we're great competitors, and I really enjoy it.
It's almost like those old go-kart bouts all over again. Kevin and Wade remain best of friends out of the seat, but warriors once they strap into their CASCAR mounts.
No, actually, Wade is probably one of my most respected competitors of all the race series I've ever been in. You can race with Wade, and you don't have to worry about him sticking you off in the weeds or into the fence. Wade's a good competitor.
Yeah, more or less it is. When we start racing, we go at it hard, and no mercy for the other guy on the track. But that's racing, and you do racing on the track and friendship off.
Kevin Dowler and Wade Lee in the STP Personality Profile.
Just 2 of the 10 CASCAR West competitors in this race, and it looks like we have lead lap cars to the outside, lap cars to the inside now. So John Gaunt in the 06 Chrysler will try to get back on the lead lap here as we go back to green flag racing.
I'd like to see John Gaunt of the Barry in car 06 get back up to the form that he showed us last year, but basically 1993 has been a struggle for him on the Budweiser CASCAR Super Series. That 100 RPM that Duke Sawchuk was looking for, I think they found it. This car is running extremely quick.
Steve Robblee running in second now. Running in third is Brad Jacques, as the 06 of John Gaunt could not get back out front.
Brad Jacques
not on this restart.
Sorry, Ron. Brad Jacques, car 35, trying to close in here, but the front 3 are kind of distancing themselves from the rest of the pack.
Well, these drivers pick up points in their qualifying procedures, and Duke Sawchuk, the race leader, was the fastest Castrol qualifier, now leads the standings with 84 points. Brad Jacques in second place with 73 points, and that's a $5,000 payout at season's end.
And on that bottom groove there, it seems to where a lot of these eastern guys like to go. It's kind of a funny place here. You need that horsepower to pull off the corners, and that's that 6,800 gear we talked about, Ron, because in actual fact, when you come off the banking, you're almost going uphill here, so you need all that low-end torque to propel the car down the straightaways here, and the Duke Sawchuk people have really got this thing figured out.
There's Mike Herniak in the STP Pontiac, Harold Brown in the Pennzoil Pontiac, and Mark Dilley in the Sega Oldsmobile, car number 64, trying to make his way back to the front as well, and bringing the GM Goodwrench Chevrolet of Dan Shurtleff through with them.
Mark Dilley in the 64 trying to pull himself away from the pack. Man, you can get bruised up if you drive around in traffic at this place.
Junior Regan in the 27, Jim Lapsevich in the 25, trying to come back up again. Don't forget, though, the 74 Duke Sawchuk race leader has yet to make a mandatory pit stop. But I guess the good news, Eric, is that more and more cars are falling off the lead lap, so when he does give up track position, he may only have 10, 12 cars in front of him.
Yeah, things have really shifted to the top for the guys who are quick out here. They can sort of distance themselves from the pack, and also, too, as you say, once they make that pit stop, it's not going to take them long to get back up where they were.
Excellent crowd on hand here. We're not sure of the capacity, but it looks like about 5,000 or so.
I would think so. Yeah, you're pretty right about there.
Here today, so
pretty close, and it's a good crowd.
Harold Brown right down on the apron of the speedway, trying to avoid giving up the inside groove, but Mark Dilley looks to have a better handling race car at this point as he does get down on the inside, and now we'll try to make it stick in the 64.
31 car of Brown, almost one of the Duke cars that we talked about. Kind of reminds you said, of Kevin Trevlin's ride, or even Michael Waltrip in NASCAR Winston Cup, the Pennzoil.
Very similar. Put a 0 instead of that 1 on there.
That's right.
And away you go. I would think, too, Eric, that you're going to see more corporate sponsorship involved in the CASCAR Series in 1994.
And that's good.
You take a look at the cars now, right there on screen. Saga, Pennzoil, and GM Goodwrench, STP. There's 4 major corporates right there in the CASCAR Super Series.
Molly Black Gold, Midas, Zellers, just to mention a few more.
Yeah. Good racing here. This is for position in behind the race leaders. I believe this is 4th position. There's the 1 car.
Sean McGlynn.
And that's a borrowed race car. We did see a puff of smoke there. I'm not sure what that was. Could have been tire rub, we hope, and for his sake, because it is the spare Mathers car for this CASCAR West trip.
Let's hope that Mathers' primary car will hang on, because the backup car, as you said, has gone west with Sean McGlynn out of Kitchener, just putting that deal together at the last minute with Paul and Dave Mathers to drive that car out here. He's just going to come out and be a spectator. But he said, put the deal together on Tuesday, and Wednesday, 3 a.m., we drove all the way out here. A bit of a heartbreak for him.
Watch Mark Dilley. Almost goes up to the top side of the speedway to the 3rd groove in that Sega Oldsmobile, racing door to door there with the STP Essex Radiator car.
Oh, I just mentioned the bad break that McGlynn had in the backup Mathers car. Now the primary car has gone west, pardon the pun, so to speak, as Mathers pulls the wounded number 10 onto pit road. Not a good weekend so far out here.
A lot of smoke coming off the right side of that car. And you can see just a little bit of smoke still under the hood, so it doesn't look good. Steve Robblee still up front as he tries to maintain his lead in the Canadian Ford Motorsport Series Championship, and also tries to move a little closer to Kerry Micks in the overall CASCAR Budweiser Super Series title.
You mentioned the slow season that Steve Robblee got himself off to, but he's been climbing back, looking for another Super Series win here, get back up front and go for 2 championships in a row. Maybe that swing from Chevy to Buick's going to work after all.
Mike Goodwin's in the pit area.
Jim Lapsevich's left leg is cramped up so bad that he can't see in the car. The pain is just terrible. Paul Mathers is getting into his car now. It appears that he wants to stay out on the track, so the crew is trying to get him into Jimmy's car. one of the interesting things you're going to see here is the crew's really got to work like crazy. Paul stands a full 1.5 feet taller and weighs about 50 pounds more than Jimmy does. So the seat is extremely small and extremely tight on him.
Give me some water, yeah.
And Paul Mathers, as Mike mentioned, is much, so he might even cramp up himself.
Exactly what I was going to mention there. There's a size difference between those two guys. Man, Jimmy looked to be in a good deal of difficulty there. But now forward to forward, Mathers comes out of his wounded number 10 and goes into the 25. But there was a lot of smoke there too. So we'll keep our eyes on Paul Mathers taking over the Jim Lapsevich number 25 and see how long it lasts out here.
Paul Mathers is the only mountain we brought from eastern Canada here to this race.
Rather skyhook, yep.
Alrighty, up front, we still have some good racing going on here. Mark Dilley has opened up a fairly big lead now over Mike Herniak, and now tries to reel in the Castrol Chrysler of Bob Hulme. And Rob Neely up at the front as well, racing through some lap traffic here.
Rob Neely out of Mississauga, Ontario. These guys took about 36 to 40 hours to trailer out here. A lot of the guys drove the rigs out and made a holiday out of it and flew their crews out here, and they're going to stay a few extra days and just sort of make a family jaunt out of this whole western swing.
Well, Mark Dilley in the 64 car is treating it as a honeymoon. He was married back in Ontario prior to coming out here.
Yeah.
Flew out, and him and Sonia, his wife, in attendance here watching.
Oh, Duke Sawchuk, yep, in the 74. A little tap there from the 31 of Harold Brown, and that's going to bring out the yellow. Too bad. The Duke was running so well, Ron.
I was going to say, just to complete that thought, they honeymooned in Banff, and now...
Good place to honeymoon.
Yeah, and now Duke Sawchuk will have to make his mandatory pit stop here and give up the race lead.
I don't know if there's any damage done in that little tap there, but it was enough to swing him around and bring out the yellow. So Duke Sawchuk out of Windsor.
And that will give Steve Robley the lead now as we take a look at the Snap-on Tool leaderboard. Brad Jacques running second. Kerry Micks is third. Hey, those are the top three drivers in the point standings.
Bob Hulme, a nice job to hang in here inside the top five. I'd like to see him finish there, too.
And Mark Dilley running fifth overall. Harold Brown with a cut right front by the looks of things as he comes down pit road.
Here's Mike.
There's a tough break for the Western Series points leader, Harold Brown. He's in the pits with a flat right front tire. Now, the big problem here is the fact that the ground effects are so low in the car, the crew can't get the jack under the car.
Look at this. Tony Novotny Jr. from the Walker Dynamax team, the crew chief of that car, comes over to give a helping hand.
Yeah, it's all hands on deck trying to get that thing up off the ground. You need all the leverage you can. Got the tube before trying to get that thing up in the air.
He was going to use that on Brad if he didn't finish well.
Yeah, exactly. Get that wheel off of there if they can.
Look at this. I would imagine there's a fair amount of heat here. This car was running around with a cut tire. Whoa,
oh, yeah, you bet. Hot stuff. Ow, give me the gloves. Where are the gloves? Get that thing off there. Now they finally get it off. Kick it out of here. Very, very long pit stop.
Harold Brown had already made a mandatory pit stop in this race, so this is, in fact, he made it earlier with some of the other contenders, so that was kind of unfortunate. He had to come in, give up track position there for that cut tire.
Gary Reynolds out of Coldwater, Ontario. I've been kind of impressed with the way he's run off and on. It's not very consistent. When the car's working well, he's down there in car number 95, but the lap cars are down on the inside. The lead lap cars are on the outside. We're going to go green. And we're used to this up front here, car 32.
Steve Robley up front, Gary Reynolds in the Winricks Furniture Chevrolet, number 95, trying to get back on the lead lap. He has a good shot at winning this year's track championship at Barrie Speedway, his home CASCAR track.
That's right. Steve Robley leads the CASCARs down here. Stop number 1 on the western swing, and the fans loving this.
We'll be off to Bridge City Speedway in Saskatoon after this event, and then Kings Park Speedway in Regina on this CASCAR West Strip. You talked about the high banking here. Right. Regina's really high as well, but a much shorter track.
Exactly. It's like running in a little bowl. These guys should do a nice job there. And I know that those two speedways are doing a good job of promoting the CASCAR Super Series coming in, Ron. So I'd get ready for some pretty good crowds out in Saskatchewan, too.
Well, Rob Neely took his McTool Chevrolet to Saskatoon in preparation before this event to show it off there and do some promotions and so on and so forth. And I understand they're going to block off the whole downtown, or at least one block in the downtown area. Hold some pit stop stuff and so on and so forth there. So
nice to see a whole community get behind a race event like this.
Stock car racing is alive and well across the country.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And the crowds are growing by the minute. Saw a little puff of smoke there. The 95 of Gary Reynolds. Hope he doesn't get in the way and mess up some of these leaders that are trying to swing around the outside. Kerry Micks out of Mount Albert, Ontario. Around the outside, Mark Dilley's going to hang around the middle groove someplace. Going to come by the wall here for you.
5 laps remaining. Duke Sawchuk and Dan Shirtliff battling it out for position right now, back in 8th spot. Up front, though, Steve Robblee leading with Brad Jakes running second. Mark Dilley is third. Kerry Micks running 4th at this juncture. And up into 5th position after starting right at the back of the field is the 36 Castrol, Bobby Hulme.
Been another superb performance by Steve Robblee out of London. The way he was running in even the first half of this event, I was kind of wondering whether or not he had the stuff in the number 32 to catch guys like Dilley. But so far, he's got things all figured out here and just going to hang on with less than 5 laps to go now to pick up stop number 1 and a nicely deserved win here on the Western Swing.
Great race right here for 8th position. Mike Herniak in the 75. 74, Duke Sawchuk. Dan Shirtliff in the 39. Contact there, and Shirtliff gathers it back up as Gaunt moves to the inside. He's a lap down, though, so that won't affect Dan Shirtliff. As we move in on the final couple of laps of this one, race leader Steve Robblee with 10 cars on the lead lap.
Car 61, Don Mossman really crossed up Dan Shirtliff, but he was able to gather it up and carry on. Good driving there with the Huntsville pilot.
Don Mossman, incidentally, was 1992 CASCAR champion at Race City Speedway, the inaugural season of CASCAR racing out west.
He's a strong runner, but against these eastern guys, there's a bit of a horsepower disadvantage for them, and they've, again, been taking somewhat of a backseat out here this afternoon.
White flag for Steve Robblee. His fastest time in the race so far, 18.52. And Eric, he's actually a 1/10 of a second faster than his qualifying time.
You just get used to that. Robblee's cars get better as the race goes on, not the other way around. One more turn of the wheel. Turn number 4. Checkers are out from Don Damaris. Steve Robblee does it again.
The Castrol 200 winner. The first ever CASCAR West Super Series event. And fittingly enough, it goes to the defending champion, Steve Robblee.
Winding things down here. The car's slowing down, but Steve Robblee starts off this Western Swing.
Rolly Lint having problems there right at the tail end of the race.
Wish I was Lint. There's a lot of smoke. That's going to be pretty expensive.
Snap-on Tools final results. Brad Jakes second, Mark Dilley third, Kerry Micks fourth, and Bobby Hulme charges from the back of the pack to finish 5th.
Rob Neely, Junior Regan, Duke Sawchuk inside the top 10. Mike Herniak with a good finish, and Danny Shirtliff 10th.
Shirtliff could have been a little better had he not been bumped out of the spot.
Here's Mike Goodwin.
Well, John, was there any doubt there? Seemed like Steve was out for just out for a Sunday drive.
I'd say the track kind of came to us. We started out a little tight, planned to do that. Car came around. It was great. Great race. Thanks a lot.
And we return to Race City Speedway to talk with the winner of the Castrol 200 in just a moment. Series win of the season.
Well, Stevie, once again, it looked like you just had a Sunday drive here. You were walking away with it all.
Well, the car was a little tight on restarts, and the boys could pull away from me on the restarts, but once we got going, our car got faster, and I was able to ease up and just ride it out.
How did you find the track come around with the heat buildup with the sun during the day?
Well, we had the car set up for the long runs. You know, on the restarts, we weren't quite as good. I wanted the long runs.
Congratulations, Steve.
Thank you.
Steve Robblee took the lead on lap 131, his second time out front in the afternoon. Never looked back after that. His 58th career CASCAR victory, and now we'll move ahead of Kerry Micks in the points.
Ford performer of the race. As we said, he started slow in this one, but back to his masterful deal. Steve Robblee will pick it up. Great drive out here in Calgary.
Well, let's go back down, talk to our second place driver.
Well, Brad, you've had one of the most competitive cars all season. You had a little bit of a slack time there, but you're coming back. How's it going?
We're coming back. This whole Walker Dynamax exhaust team we've regrouped. We've done a lot of work, and it's paying off. We just want to keep the consistency. We seem to be running real well. I was kind of hoping this was a 300-lap race rather than a 200. I think I might have caught him because this car just kept on getting a little better and a little better as we went, but it was a good run still. Some good competition here.
Great race.
Thank you very much.
Great run, Mark. For a newlywed, you don't look to be too tired. How was the race?
It was a good race. The Sega Oldsmobile really was really hooked up good. The guys did a great job. I just couldn't catch them. We needed a caution, and we didn't get one, but that's racing. We're happy.
How'd you have the car set up for the corners? I know the banking is a little higher than you're normally used to.
The car, you know, you have to spring it a lot harder for a bank track like this. We came yesterday and practiced and horsed around a bit with tire stagger and some springs and that, and we just seemed to hit it. We were kind of lucky to hit it.
Well, you cashed out. Good start to the honeymoon.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's have a look at some of the totals here from the event at Calgary's Race City Speedway. Steve Robblee, your winner. 5 lead changes among 4 drivers, 21 cars running at the finish. Margin of victory 1.61 seconds, average speed 67.5. And with this, Steve Robblee will vault ahead of Kerry Micks in the point standings. Brad Jacques will stay where he is in 3rd place.
Well, they did it again. The number 32 team, Steve Robblee and company, just unbeatable once again on a brand new track. What do you make of that, Mike?
Well, it's fantastic. You can see that a crew like this has really got their car set up. This is an unfamiliar track. Doesn't matter where this team seems to go, they can make it work.
Next stop, of course, will be Saskatoon, then Regina. We don't have those races for you on TSN, but we will bring you coverage of the Peterborough event on that brand new track under Kim Wallace, and that'll be a good one. And Mike, by the time we get there, this series could be so tight that 4, maybe 5 drivers could be within a dozen points of each other.
Well, that's right. The guy we didn't see finish at the end here, Kerry Micks, who's up there in points, I got a feeling he, Brad Jacques, Steve Robblee, and a couple others are going to be button heads right at the end.
Well, it was a good one here today, and I'm sure it'll be a good one next time as well. For Mike Goodwin, the entire CASCAR staff, and all of those behind the scenes of our race program here today, I'm Ron St. Clair bidding you farewell from Race City Speedway in Calgary.
This program has been brought to you in part by Budweiser Racing. It's a Bud race. Ford of Canada, where quality is more than a commitment. Quality is job one. It's working. STP and Presto. Midas. Trust your car to Midas. And Snap-on Tools, the official tool of CASCAR.